Welcome to our audience. Hello, everyone. This is Karen Ryan from the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, welcoming our international audience to our live roundtable. We are really honored to have with us three guests who are leaders of the Global Walk for Peace and Justice, where a year-long march is taking place from New Delhi to Geneva that will end at the UN in Geneva in September of 2020. So it is really our delight and privilege to have our audience join this march. And I'll let our guests in a moment introduce where they are in the march and tell us all about it. But first, we're going to take a look at a video that we've produced, including one of our guests, Ramesh Sharma, who is a campaign organizer with the Global March, who was with us last October here in Atlanta at our Human Rights Defenders Forum that we host here with President Jimmy Carter last October. So we're going to go ahead and play a short video that gives you, the audience, a picture of what we're going to be talking about today.
One of the biggest landlords in India is the forest department, because they are the one who actually hold more than 35% of the geographical area of the country. And it's very important because they are the one who actually responsible for eviction of millions of people on the ground.
For many years, the poor in rural India have fed themselves by farming other people's land. Recent actions by government and the private sector have forced many people off the land, leaving India's poor even more marginalized. Ramesh Sharma and his organization Ekta Parishad want to help the poor to gain control over resources critical to their livelihoods.
They are the nomads, they are the fisher folks, they are the single women, they are the indigenous people, they are the Dalits, and they are the people who are lived in the urban territories but who don't have any dignified place to stay. A very recent report of Government of India said that 56% of these population, they don't have any secured identity or dignity or their livelihood.
Inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, Ekta Parishad attempts to build leadership from the bottom up.
We call it a realization of power of the poor. So realization of power of the poor is one of the core philosophies of Ekta Parishad, and that's how we have thousands and thousands of people who are in the countryside and who are the one who actually leading their campaign at the local level.
In 2012, Ekta Parishad organized Jan Satyagraha, or People's Struggle for Truth and Justice, as a non-violent foot march from Gwalior to Delhi. 50,000 landless and small farmers set out for Delhi, and during the course of the march, negotiated with the Indian government a draft national land reforms policy and adoption of a legal provision to provide agricultural and homestead land to the landless and homeless poor people. At the Carter Center's 2019 Human Rights Defenders Forum, Sharma talked about a year-long global march that has even broader aims.
So one idea is to inspire, especially those countries who are tough, who are actually facing a lot of direct or structural violence, to set up a ministry of peace. And this is the one idea which actually we keep bringing in the political discourse in India, and we try to address this issue because we are celebrating 150 years of Gandhi in India, and we don't have Ministry of Peace.
Jai Jagat 2020 is a 10,000-kilometer march for justice and peace that began on October 2nd, 2019, the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's birth.
We have already started our walk from Delhi to Geneva. Next October, we'll reach Geneva, and we'll be 5,000 people to talk about the justice, peace, and ethics.
Jai Jagat 2020 will travel through 10 countries, holding non-violence training and events discussing justice along the way. After joining with separate marches from Africa and Europe, the march will end at the Global Action Forum to be held in Geneva in September 2020. Sharma says that the march is a simple and inexpensive way to call attention to the plight of the poor and the need for justice to create a victory for the world and honor Gandhi's legacy.
Do simple action. There's nothing wrong to do simple action, because with simple action you can save a lot of energy and time, and to encourage your own people to lead the action. What Gandhi said is a very simple, in a gentle way you can shake the world. So explore the gentle ways.
Wonderful. So here we are. We are so happy that we are able to join this wonderful march by the participation of three of its leaders with us today. And I would love for each of you to talk about where you are now, what has happened, how, if you can share with us how this is happening along the way. Who are you meeting? Who's participating in the march? Who are the people that you're meeting? What are you talking about? How is it affecting the communities that you're meeting? So why don't we go ahead? First of all, I want to introduce our guests. We have Jill Carr-Harris on my right, on the audience's right. We have Jill Carr-Harris. In the middle, we have Rajagopal, PV. And on the left, we have Ramesh Sharma, who was with us in October in 2019. All are leaders of this global walk for justice and peace. So I'm going to ask each of you to talk about where you, first of all, the city that you're in. Where are you along the march? And maybe if you could talk just a couple of sentences about how you came to this work, each of you. And then we'll talk about what's happening along the way. Jill Carr-Harris, let's start with you.
Oh, good evening. I know it's your morning, but good evening, Karen. We're in Varda in the central part of India, near Sevagram, an ashram where Gandhi lived for many years. So we are on the final part of our yatra in India. I am a Canadian, as you can hear from my accent. I don't have an Indian accent. And I came to India 30 years ago, basically via the UN, UNDP. And I always felt that it was important to understand the grassroots in development. So after doing many things, I worked at the grassroots level in India, a lot with women, and have been trying to understand community mobilization, community development. I did also begin to understand that Gandhi really is still in the memories of people at the grassroots in India. So I went back and did a doctoral degree on nonviolence and peace education at the University of Toronto. And this helped to articulate for me what this was all about. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice to meet you and introduce you to our audience. Mr. Rajagopal, please tell us how you came to this work many years ago, I understand, and how you see this current march.
Yeah, I began back in 1970 with the surrender and rehabilitation of bandits in the central part of India, and then basically understanding the violence, direct and indirect violence. So initially it was all a question of dealing with direct violence, getting the bandit to surrender. But then we thought as long as you have the dirty water, the mosquitoes are bound to be born, to breed. So we decided to work on the indirect violence issue. So that is where I began to train large number of young people who can go to communities, villages, organize people, so that through their own organizational efforts, they can change their life situation. So that is how we were building a non-violent social movement in India. And it grew during the last 30, 40 years into a national level movement, making impact at the local level as well as at the national level. That is what I'm involved in at the moment. And this is something to in the same direction that from national to global now. We want to see whether the methods and strategies that we use at the national level can also work at the international level. So that is what we are trying to through Jai Jagat 2020. Yeah.
Well, we certainly need it, don't we? At the international level, we need a global peace movement. So that's good timing on your part. And Ramesh Sharma, you were with us in October with President Carter and the others at our Human Rights Defenders Forum. And I know that you have been a global campaign leader and spoke with us last October about the work in India. So how do you tell us how you came to this work, and how do you see this this movement in India growing to a global stage?
Yeah, thank you. So my journey began with Ekta Parishad in 1998. So it's almost like 21 years. And since beginning, I was very fortunate that Rajagopalji was very kind to give me opportunity to design the campaign, to help for building the campaigns and advocacy. So that's how it became my interest and my passion. I was the part of journey with Rajaji since the first foot march way back in 1999, when we walked 3,500 kilometers across the central India. We had many interesting experiences, and finally we got success to convince the central government for the land redistribution. So that's how the whole issue of justice and peace, it's now a part of my larger work. I think this is a very right time in India, as well as in the international level, to do such action like Jai Jagat, because peace is one thing which everybody we need in every country, in every geographies. And we know that without justice, we cannot bring the peace. So that's how we given the name of this campaign. This is a global walk for justice and peace.
That's wonderful. And I would love to hear what's happening on the march. Tell the audience about what you're experiencing. How many people are participating? And how does it work? You go into a town and you meet with people. Tell us what it's like. Give us a feel for what's happening.
So it's an absolutely amazing experience, Karen. We basically have 50 people who are walking together behind a banner in often two lines along a highway or road, going from village to village, city to city, place to place, about 25 kilometers a day. And we've covered almost 2,000 kilometers now. So we've seen thousands and thousands of people. But I think what is outstanding about this march is that we are witnessing in the last in several weeks of our march, we witnessed so many thousands of people again coming out in their white kurtas and their small Gandhian caps, and really connecting with Gandhi in ways that are very similar to the freedom struggle that happened in the 30s and 40s, the Quit India movement. And I think that kind of outpouring of support that we saw, from farmers, from indigenous people, from local people, from poor women, has really given us an incredible thrill that somehow we have hit a nerve. We've created a meaning in people's hearts at the moment in India, in spite of lots of continual difficulties in India being what it is. And I just want to emphasize that probably these 50 people, who are 15 international people, 35 Indians, some are from villages, some are, young people from cities. So all ages, all castes, all groups in a little kind of world international community marching along. They're also sort of in a training on the road, understanding India. And we liken this to kind of a worm's eye view of the country as opposed to a bird's eye view. And it's remarkable.
That's wonderful. Rajagopalji, you want to share your experiences and your thoughts about the march?
Through this yatra, we are also trying to, on one side, trying to understand the problems on the ground, but also try to find what are the solutions to the problems, So as you walk through, we have covered 2,000 kilometers already through many states. So we meet people, and it is very interesting to see how people have developed very interesting methods to deal with problems that they are facing. On one side, you find highly polluted agriculture system because of fertilizer chemicals. But on the other side, you find large number of farmers now moving into organic farming, and because they have understood this kind of agriculture is not going to sustain. So, and in many villages, we found people have developed their own system of what you call prevention and promotion, because they understand certain things are to be prevented. Like we need to prevent fertilizer, we need to prevent alcohol, we need to prevent Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola coming to our village, but we also need to promote cooperatives and organic farming. So people are designing new methods to cope with the kind of problems that they are facing, because they understand the food is becoming more and more polluted. So, and then we found people protecting forest on their own. And we also found young people taking up many activities to help the villagers and poor people in their own village. So on one side, there are problems, but on the other side, it's very interesting to see how even among the poor people, also in the middle class, young people and villagers are developing new methods to cope with the kind of problems that they are facing. Because we want to, when we come to Geneva, we are not only trying to present the problems, we are also trying to say, look, there are non-violent solutions to the problems that we are facing today, whether it is the problem of poverty or climate crisis, or violence or inequality in the society. Given an opportunity, the society can work to solve the problem. So we are trying to collect problems and solutions so that when we come to Geneva, we have very interesting presentations to make. And that we are not only bringing from India, because we are going to many other countries and also expecting people from other parts of the world to come to Geneva. So we hope there will be a real basket of experiences to share, which can inspire people. And some of it may be interesting for people to take back and practice. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I noticed from some of the photos that it looks like as you're going, people from each community are joining you for part of the journey. It seems it must be very thrilling.
Yeah.
But the goal that really we're trying to do is to bring people together.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there's a common social vision that we have. And the common is not defined too much, because everybody comes from very diverse locations and diverse problems and have diverse solutions to those problems. But I think what we see is that Gandhi still offers a very a kind of a loose sense that nonviolence and the well-being of all, or leaving no one behind, is something that is common to everybody. And this is why Indigenous people and poor farmers felt included as we were marching along. And the issues that we're discussing as we're trying to move to Geneva are, of course, to address the Sustainable Development Goals and some of the international development policies. But people on the ground are raising issues that fit loosely into 4 pillars. And so that's eradication of poverty, reduction of social discrimination, climate crisis, and reduction of violence. So that remains, both at the local and the global level, the categories that we're using to bring all these diverse different experiences, problems, solutions together.
That's wonderful. And Ramesh Sharma, I know that one of your hopes, because your experience in India has been, from what I've read, that all of you have been involved in real impact on communities and on national policy even. So I know, Ramesh, that one of your goals is to connect with the larger world and bring this idea of nonviolence and those 4 pillars that you just mentioned. We are all engaged in each of those pillars, right? In every one of our countries, we see this similar movements really brewing. Right. So there's this opportunity that you're providing really for us all to be talking about these common challenges for every community and for the world. So Ramesh Sharma, how do you see this connecting with the global movements that you are connecting with through this campaign?
Right. So you are absolutely right. This is the high time for us to build the bridges between the southern countries and between the northern and southern countries and between the movements. This process has actually begun way back in 2007, when the first time the whole delegation of 250 activists from different countries, basically who are fighting for the land rights and the similar issues, they walked with us in the first long foot march. And then after similar thing has happened in 2012. But in between, Rajagopal ji and Jill, they have traveled in different parts of the world, and they organized many trainings for those young people and social activists. I remember this was in Colombia, this was in Armenia, this was in Georgia, in Spain, in France, in UK, in all those countries, in Africa also, where the people are really looking for some sort of a opportunity to come up together and to do some collective actions. So here I can see that there is a great potential. There's a great potential. And that's how, I mean, we chose the foot march because it's the best way to go to the people, to go to the movement, to talk to them, to stay with them, and get enough time to build something from the bottom. So it's not like a one-day conference or one-day event where people are coming just for sharing their experiences, but it's more like growing something from the bottom. So we are very hopeful. And I mean, until now, we have a lot of interesting association in different countries. I mean, last time when I was in US and then in Europe, in UK, as well as we have a lot of interesting friends and organizations in Africa and Latin America. So the whole process is, it's growing now, it's growing. And as I said, that many organizations, they are joining us. And it's a collective action for us. That's why the name of campaign is Jai Jagat.
So, you know, one of the areas that the Carter Center and others are working on really at the grassroots level is understanding the essential role of at the most community level, how important that engagement is. And for us, we have long understood, and I know you have as well, all three of you, the role of women in this mobilization. We're facing a climate crisis now. We are facing increased nationalism and militarism. You know, the trend lines are not positive yet. We want to push this into a positive trend line, but right now we are seeing this, you know, this emergence of very, very vehement nationalism. But we know that women at the community level, at the family level, at the community level, are crucial to combating all of these negative trend lines. We recently were talking about how important women are to addressing the climate crisis. And Rajagopal, you just mentioned some of the sustainable solutions that communities are developing. Women are key in this. So maybe each of you could talk about this and how important is it to really look at how women are participating, not just in your march, but as you meet communities, how can we encourage and support the role of local women in all of these solutions from the grassroots all the way to the global level? I'll start with you, Jill, and then we can go down here.
Sure. I mean, in the organizing that we've done historically here, which is at the base of our Jai Jagat experience, we've been obviously seeing how women come together and are very, very strong in taking any agenda forward. And that is key to the development that we see in India at the grassroots. And so engaging with that is not difficult, you know, because they're already getting engaged around various issues like alcohol and violence and so on, right? There's many, many levels of engagement, both in terms of advocating for change, but also, as you say, for sustainable solutions. I think what is interesting is to focus, what we're trying to do is focus on some of the poorer women leaders, because they connect peace in terms of peace with nature, which is basic to climate change, and peaceful coexistence. It's that interface, that interrelationship, of course, which we're trying to promote through seeing how women in their leadership, in their communities are responding. And it's fascinating because we had a 50 grassroots women, Karen, get together recently to talk to 50 international peacemaker women who came from middle class but conflict-ridden areas in Colombia, Lebanon, Palestine, all over the world. And they came together in a dialogue. And I think what we got out of that dialogue between 50 grassroots women leaders and 50 international middle class leaders is that we have to see women on the front lines as the heroes. Yeah. They need to be given the light and the attention as peacemakers. And there was a lot of discussion in that said that women, men are good at making war and making, ceasefires and stopping war, but women are good at making peace. And I think that was the message that came from this large forum of women. So to conclude, to allow the others to speak, I think we're really trying to bring forward the power of grassroots women in those sustainable development solutions that they're doing at the community level, which are numerous, as well as women standing up against injustice. Because they want peace for their communities, and they know that unless they address the injustice, they're not going to get peace. It's not sustainable peace.
That's right.
And this is what we're really hoping to bring light on, which is why we have so many women that we're attracting in this process. Not only do we have grassroots women in the 50, but wherever we go, women are quite excited about what we're doing and coming out. And we try to make sure they talk and are not overruled by men, because, sometimes that happens. But we're really seeing that as a major momentum of the Jai Jagat.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think what would be lovely for us is to have some of those testimonies shared as we go forward over this next several months. And as a continuation of this discussion, we would be happy to share those testimonies on social media and on different media platforms to give that spotlight to women, grassroots women, because this is, I totally agree with you. This is where the solutions lie. And Rajagopal ji, you want to share your thoughts about this topic?
Yeah, in the youth training programs, in fact, the main action which I am involved is training young people to get back to villages and organize community. Community organization is the main area. And when thousands of communities are organized, you can have a national action, because all these communities get organized to come to any level. Maybe the action can be at the local level, or it can be at the national level. So in the training, we have always focused that there should be equal participation of men and women. Initially, it was difficult, but then slowly we were able to break this taboo, and more women came to those training programs. And we are also noticing this shift in demography, because many men go to cities to make money. Agriculture is completely in the hands of women now. About 70% agricultural operations are done by women. So the new movement is now about women and their right over land. You can't, if your husband is in the city and you go to a bank for money, they say, bring the husband to put the signature. So more and more women are getting organized around this issue of women and land rights, and also in the farming community, because they are the major players now in the farming sector. So they want to assert their right in the area of farming. and agriculture. So the movement is becoming big. As a result, every time we have a larger movement walking to Delhi, the number is increasing. Recently, 4 women members of our team took a long march from the southern tip of India to Delhi, just on this issue of women and their right over land, women as farmer, right? Recognize us as farmers. So the movements among women are becoming really strong, and Ekta Parishad is also deeply involved in promoting and supporting such movements. So as a result, we have very large base among women in many, many villages. Recently, in our own march, the district collector of a district, Betul, he said, look, I can see a revolution happening through women in this district because there are so many self-help groups and they have taken up so many activities, transforming the economy of the village. So many people now feel they are the power and they are going to drive the society forward. Yeah.
Well, that's good news. I like to hear that because I do think it will have a profound impact when women are able to certainly control their land and their livelihood, but also into the decision-making bodies. This is also very important. Ramesh Sharma, tell us your perspective on this important topic of how important it is to uplift women as part of this movement.
Yeah, sure. So I remember when first time we had a big march with 25,000 people in year 2007. We had a negotiation with the government of India. And that time, the key issue of negotiation was to ensure the joint land entitlement. That means in every land entitlement which is issued by the government, the women name should also be there. So I'm very happy to tell. I mean, it's not just Ekta Parishad. There are various other movements are also who are raised this issue. But finally, in 2007, there was soon after our negotiation, the new legislation came. This is called Forest Rights Act, and the first time legally, the name of women is also registered as an entity of landowner. And until now, roughly around 2 million families, they have already received their land entitlement. In other states, we did the similar actions. I'll name few states like one in Bihar, where the all homestead land entitlement is now issued in the name of women. In Orissa, there is a very interesting campaign called My Land, My Home. In this campaign also, the women are given the equal space and they are owning the joint land entitlement. So as Rajagopal ji said, that this process is emerging, and we are one of those organizations in India who are raising the issues of Women Farmer Entitlement Act, Women Farmer Entitlement legislation, which is a very, very important legislation. As Rajagopal ji has mentioned, that 70% of agriculture work is actually done by women, but they don't have in the legal ownership, the entitlement over a piece of land. So this is one of our prime slogan to take this message right from India to the other countries. And I'm very happy to tell here that, I mean, even through Jai Jagat Action, we had a very interesting conversation. I can name in Serbia, we have a very interesting association with Women in Black. In Africa, we have an association with Africa Rising. In Kenya, with the Kenya Land Alliance. In Colombia, as Jill said, that we had a very interesting collaboration with the women who are fighting for the peace zone. And in a neighboring country, Nepal, where the women farmers, they have a very interesting movement. And some of them, they have participated. They actually walked with us last month here.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Jill, that's great. Ramesh, thank you.
Just wanted to add to Ramesh, we also worked with women in Mindanao on their struggle for peace. One of the underground groups, and the women were trying to do peacemaking. And the peace zones in Colombia, of course. So there's been also, we had a very large international conference of women coming together in Georgia for the whole region of the Caucasus. So we've actually been working systematically on this issue for Jai Jagat for the last 4 years in terms of mobilizing women, so that in Geneva, we can really bring this issue to the fore, because I think this is something that is not just in India, but we're finding the resonance in so many places.
Yes, and I think that's right. And you know, one of your objectives, I understand, is to develop peace education, because you know, you have this direct action through a march, the way you're doing is mobilizing people. But in order to sustain the idea of nonviolence through learning, I think peace education is an approach that is necessary. You know, we are, as I said before, the trend lines are very negative right now. Yet we do see mobilization in, whether it's Mindanao, Colombia, you know, in the United States. You know, there are, I think the people are hungry for ideas of nonviolence.
Yes.
In the United States, you may be following this, but there is finally a very, very robust discussion on U.S. foreign policy and what type of foreign policy we should have. Maybe we shouldn't be, you know, having so many wars, endless warfare, you know. So I think that at the popular level, there is a real thirst for nonviolence. So I'd love for each of you to talk about, maybe starting with you, Rajagopalji, if you could talk about peace education as a concept that we need to develop in each of our societies, and starting with India and with the Jai Jagat March.
In fact, in the meeting today, we invited the minister from the central government, the Minister for Cultural Affairs and Tourism, and we were discussing some of those issues. Like we spoke about peace education and creating a real possibility for peace education across the country, because celebration of Mahatma Gandhi cannot go without promoting a culture of non-violence. You know, how do you transform a society from a culture of violence to culture of non-violence? So that will demand a lot more peace education. We were speaking about peace tourism, because we said if we can bring people from all over the world to take them to the places of Buddha and Gandhi in different parts of the country, probably it will bring a greater understanding of how to promote peace and how to speak about peace, how to enjoy the idea of peace. And then we also went to the extent of speaking about Peace Institute and Peace University, etc., etc. And he took that very seriously, and he said he will take that message back to Delhi. And when we met the Prime Minister some time back, Ramesh and me, we spoke to him about this issue of peace ministry, because we thought in every country, if you can have a ministry for defense and ministry for police and home, you can also have a ministry for peace, rather than expecting that peace will automatically come. It is better to work towards peace and engage in the process of building peace. And in the program that we conduct every day evening, we have what you call an all religious prayer, because in a country like India, where you have different cultures and different religions living together, we need to have a greater education among young people, not to speak and hate other religions. So we conduct this evening all religious prayer to deepen the understanding of respecting other religions, not only tolerating, but also respecting other religions. So we try to use every avenue for peace education, whether we go to schools and colleges, whether we speak to government officials, whether we are with the political leaders, whether we are conducting our peace prayer meetings. We are also trying to make the politicians to understand that governance need to be nonviolent. Now, there is an expectation that the society need to be nonviolent, mobilization need to be nonviolent, agitation need to be nonviolent, but they have the freedom to be violent. The state has the freedom to be violent. So in an advanced society, in a modern society, how can a state be so brutal and so violent? When people are asking only for water, people are asking for right over land. People are asking for better price for their products. How can the state continue to use violence and police against these people who are making genuine demands to make a living? So I think peace education being a very large area, we are trying to tackle different areas with a different group of people. So how to work with young people, how to work with the government, how to work with religious leaders. So this is a constant ongoing program as far as Ekta Parishat is concerned to help people to understand nonviolence and the need for nonviolence and transforming the society into a culture of a nonviolent society. So we find some interesting results, like we were able to help the Rajasthan government to initiate a department for peace and nonviolence. And now that department is becoming strong. They are looking for new ideas and we are helping them. Now the chief minister of another state called Chhattisgarh will be coming day after tomorrow. And we hope he is going to announce, using this opportunity of 150 years of Mahatma, he may announce a peace and nonviolence ministry or a department. We have got many schools and institutes beginning a department of nonviolence and peace, and also trying to see how nonviolence can be part of the curriculum. You know, how do you learn nonviolence in the developmental education? How do you learn nonviolence in economy? How do you learn nonviolence in media? So we constantly try to influence every possible opportunity is used to influence people to think that there is something called nonviolence that you can use to make your subject or your work more interesting and more useful. And that is how the society will advance, we believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good point. And your point about the government behaving violently when the rest of society is expected to be nonviolent is a very interesting point, because what happens is that when people see the state acting violently, they are going to copy this. They are going to respond in kind. Yeah. And I think this is a topic actually that our great leader of peace, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, wrote about, that state violence, whether it's the death penalty or criminal justice or warfare, these are state violence. This is state violence, and that people will look at that and say, well, if the state can be violent, why must I be nonviolent? So this is a very important point, I think, that we must emphasize and really challenge our leaders to say, how can we solve these problems with nonviolence? You, as government, have that responsibility. And we see all over the world that this is a problem. So Ramesh Sharma, talk to us about this, and what do you think a Ministry of Peace could do in this regard? Because obviously what you need is political will. You need the leaders to go along with this. You need the leaders to not be exploiting the fears of people to be encouraging violence. So this is a political problem. It's a social problem. So Ramesh Sharma, what do you think? How could a Ministry of Peace help with this problem and peace education as well?
Yeah. So I think that the Ministry of Peace, peace education is one of the prime agenda. If the Ministry of Peace, we get success to establish the Ministry of Peace here in India as well as in other country, the peace education should be one of the key focus to popularize the peace education right from the bottom. And as Rajagopalji has mentioned, that we want to see peace education as a part of elementary education system. So the Peace Ministry can lead all these processes. The second thing, what we felt here in India, there are various conflict zones. There are more than 200 conflict zones. In some of those conflict zones, the negotiation process or the peace talks, it's going on since last more than 20 years or 25 years. We need some intermediaries body which can come in between and to allow the both sides to come in the dais and to talk peacefully and to understand the whole spirit of peace and justice. So probably that could be a second key focus of Peace Ministry. The third, which we felt it's extremely important, and this is a very interesting experience of Yatra, this our march. There is a crime reporter
unit in each of the bigger or the smaller newspapers, but there's no peace reporters.
Yes.
Newspapers in the media. So we try to challenge the media also. So yes. I think one of the part of the peace education, we can see that to allow the media to understand the larger necessities of using those vocabularies and using those news, which can create some hope or some energy from the bottom. So these are the part of some aspects of the peace ministry. But one thing which definitely I would like to mention here, I mean, nowadays we are also reading the experiences of some of those countries who have the peace ministries, like Nepal, the Ministry of Peace and Reconstruction, very interesting experiences from South Africa or from Colombia or from other countries, very recently from Ethiopia also. The one thing which really inspiring for me is Ministry of Future Affairs of Sweden. When this whole ministry is created in a way where they are challenging the current way of thinking, especially they are targeting those politicians who have the solutions of only those things which has already happened, but they don't have any deeper understanding about the future of the humanity, the future of the planet. And this ministry precisely is responsible for the future affairs. So probably this could be also one agenda of the peace ministry. So I mean, I know that we are very enthusiastic. We have a lot of hopes about the peace ministry, but the idea is, as Rajagopal has mentioned, is actually we are trying to take it from the bottom itself.
That's wonderful. And I think one area of focus that the Carter Center has been interested in is actually uplifting women peace builders, especially because women peace builders have the avenues and the understanding and the community connections that help make peace. I think that's another area. We a couple of years ago, we worked here in the US to pass the Women, Peace and Security Act, which requires that our government include women in any peace process and do make robust efforts to reach out to women peace builders. We've been talking a lot about the threats against women peace builders, because when you step forward to talk about peace and to challenge those who are making violence, that can be a dangerous enterprise. And so one of the coming, you may be aware of this, but one effort this year that we should definitely connect with you guys about is the Stand with Women Peace Builders campaign from the International Civil Society Action Network that I'm part of. So we will certainly connect with this idea that standing with women all peace builders, but of course women peace builders are especially vulnerable but also especially effective. So that's another effort. So as we run out of time here, I just want to ask each of you to reflect on this anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi and what it means now for India, but also the world. We have, these very unique spiritual and political leaders who brought together the this very, very high vision of love and not just tolerance, but real love and acceptance of each other across boundaries, but also into the political sphere of making decisions as societies about inclusion and about rights. So talk to us, each of you, about this anniversary, and what do you think the great leader, Mahatma Gandhi, has to teach to us today, given all that we're facing, starting with you, Jill.
Yeah, just segueing off the peace education, I think the benefit of this Gandhi 150 is to really look at methods of nonviolent action, because we have both universities who have courses on peace, we have a lot of peace builder groups, we have huge networks. And how do we bring this to more practice and action, where we're connected and we're acting somehow in the same direction, not bumper cars bumping into each other, but on a flow in taking different methods of nonviolence in dealing with different problems. And it seems to me that Gandhi gave us a framework in which we could look at nonviolence and apply it to different spheres of society. So what is really helpful is to see these methods not only in terms of a civil disobedience methods or in terms of educating children's methods of peace education, but more integral to the whole society. And what I mean by that is that our world is very violent. We have permeated through the media, through our different, a lot of violence. So how do we use this 150? And I think Gandhi really spoke to us, as did Martin Luther King, that what did Martin Luther King Jr. say? He said that, it's no longer about nonviolence and violence, it's about nonviolence or non-existence. We are at a juncture where we need these methods. We need to learn them. And I think Gandhi is one framework from which we can learn some of these methods. So it's been amazing to be able to connect with people on nonviolence in governance, more as Rajagopal mentioned earlier, more nonviolence in education, in order to bring people not to just respond to violence with nonviolence, but to really see things in a different perspective of building peace and building nonviolence.
Thank you. Rajagopalji, would you like to?
Yes, this is the best time to speak about Gandhi because we have the deepening crisis in the world. So we think every time you refer back to Gandhi, people find it interesting because this idea of SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, and the tagline that no one left behind. See, Gandhi said, think of the poorest and weakest whenever you contemplate an action. How many years back? Now, what we are trying is by walking from Delhi to Geneva, we are trying to link these two together. That think of the last person, Gandhi said, and SDG says no one left behind. So there is a very interesting time to really speak about the last person in the society and the poorest in the society. Because the climate crisis is also a big issue that we are all tackling, we repeat this idea that there is enough for everyone's need and not enough for anybody's greed. This understanding that, look, this is a need-greed battle, and unless you live differently, if you continue to consume the way you consume, waste the way you waste, abuse the way you abuse, then there's no way out. The way out will be changing the lifestyle and going towards simplicity, not to build your greed, but to think about need of millions of people who are left behind. And it's also time to speak about the way the kind of political crisis that we see in the world. It is also time to speak about what Gandhi said, that means and ends. It is not only, everybody is thinking about how I can make money, how I can get power, and no discussion about means at all. So this is the right time to revisit this idea of means. How are we making the kind of money we make? How are we capturing power by using crooked methods, etc., etc.? So I think every day when we talk to people about Gandhi, every quote, every example that you take from Gandhi becomes very, very relevant, though these ideas were very old, but today they look as good as they were at that point of time when he said it. So this is very relevant time to bring back Gandhi, understand his ideas, and see how those ideas can be applied. It's not just the theory of Gandhi and the philosophy of Gandhi, but application of Gandhi and bringing that into our own life. And that is equally good for violence also, because in a world where there are forces trying to sell violence, sell war, to make young people to understand the power of nonviolence. Then when you speak how a person like Gandhi could stand up against the British forces and then use nonviolence so effectively to free India. So then people understand the value of nonviolence. And it's a question of how you present it. But it's not only presenting, but also to creating examples of that kind. Then people really get inspired. So this is a good time to get back to Gandhi. That is what I believe. Yeah.
Wonderful. Ramesh Sharma, we only have a couple minutes left. Tell us your reflections on Gandhi, and then each of you will have a minute to tell us how people can get involved and what should be our next steps to promote this movement. Ramesh?
Yeah, very briefly. So the one message of Jai Jagat is to talk about the non-violent economy, because that's the one thing which is influencing our life, our minds, our hearts, and our behavior and everything. So through Jai Jagat campaign, we are also talking a lot about the non-violent economy. We know that there are some great examples in the world where people are practicing the solidarity economy or green economy, and there are various thoughts and such good practices is happening in different countries. So we are collecting and compiling all those informations, and we think that that's the one very strong message of Gandhi, because he's the one who said way back that be the change you want to see in the world. So that's the one way to inspire the young generations, because they are the very easy target. They are the soft targets of those structural violent economic systems. So we are trying to reach out to those younger generations and to make them convinced that there is another way of looking the whole economy. That's why we are promoting the whole idea of non-violent economy and the green economy.
That's a great message for this day as we're fighting climate change, and also the nonviolent economy. One of our great friends, you may know her, Dr. Radhika Balakrishnan, she says, she's an economist, and she says, what is the economy for? We have to ask this question. What is the economy for? Is it really for numbers on a board, to show strong economic growth in the stock market? Is that what the economy is for? Or is it for people and the quality of life that people live? So this is the nonviolent economy is a wonderful framing. So tell us, each of you, we have about 2 minutes left. If you could take a couple of sentences and your closing message, how can people get involved? What would you like our audience to do? Starting with you, Jill.
Everyone can be involved. This is for everybody. And artists, business people, everybody can be involved. I think we really see social media as an important tool. If youth can be involved to help disseminate it. Of course, simultaneous actions that get connected to this. So people's participation and engagement that is known to us or to this campaign would be what we would like. Please be involved.
Wonderful. Rajagopalji.
Yes, as we are walking through many countries, we are planning to conduct youth training programs in non-violence. And that is one area. Like we had a very good ILC team here, International Land Coalition team from Rome. They selected young people from different parts of the world and sent them here for a placement for a period of 1 month. And they went back so inspired. And so how do we use this march to promote leadership, but also promote a greater understanding of nonviolence among young people? So next 8 months, we are on the road. So every month we can take a batch of young people to be part of it. And we are also organizing peace conferences. So while 50 people are marching, how do we reach to 50 million people? So it really becomes a global campaign. Otherwise, 50 people marching will not get noticed. So by the time we reach Geneva, it should become a global campaign. So the decision makers in World Bank, IMF, WTO should be in a position to listen to us, because we want to relate the micro issues with macro policy making, macro decision. So that will happen only when the campaign becomes big, and that is where everybody need to pitch in.
Wonderful. Ramesh, how would you like people to participate?
Yeah, sure. So I would encourage the younger generation to be a part of our social media team and the whole journey of social media. And our young team of social media, they are very energetic. They put photographs, videos every day. So they can be a part of this longer journey, the virtual journey. But I would also like to say here that this is not just one march we are visualizing and we are doing at the global level. There is a Jai Jagat Association which has already been constituted, and there are various dignitaries who are a part of this Jai Jagat action. So we hope that the people could also be a part of this longer journey, even after post-October 2020.
Fantastic. And I'd like to thank all three of you for the efforts you have made to join us and to inform, our audience about what you're doing and how we can all join. And let us think about connecting as you go along the road. Let's maybe have updates along the way with you, how it's going and how people can participate. Thank you so much for your participation. Great luck. And please give all of our best luck and our love to every marcher, everybody who's with you. Please send them greetings from Atlanta to all of you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Jai Jagat. Jai Jagat.
Thank you.